Καλώς ήρθες στο κανάλι μου. Είμαι ο Βασίλης Πετρούλιας, Advanced Remix Diver της CDI και εδώ θα μιλάμε μόνο για κατάδυση. Τεχνικές, ασφάλεια, εξοπλισμό, νοοτροπία, εκπαίδευση και πραγματικές ιστορίες που έχουν κάτι να μας διδάξουν. Αν σου αρέσει αυτό το στυλ περιεχομένου, κάνε ένα subscribe για να μην χάνεις τα επόμενα και πάμε κατευθείαν στο θέμα. Πριν ξεκινήσουμε, αυτό το βίντεο είναι εκπαιδευτικός σχολιασμός στα πλαίσια του mentoring και ασφάλεια στην κατάδυση. Δεν αποτελεί κάποιο επίσημο πόρισμα, ούτε αντικαθιστά εκπαίδευση από πιστοποιημένο οργανισμό. Θα αναφέρω στοιχεία και ονόματα μόνο στο βαθμό που έχουν δημοσιευθεί από τις πηγές που θα δεις στα σχόλια. Ο σκοπός είναι να καταλάβουμε την αλυσίδα των λαθών, πώς έγινε, πώς οδηγήθηκε εκεί και πώς μπορούμε να αποφύγουμε ένα ατύχημα. Σήμερα, λοιπόν, θα δούμε ένα περιστατικό που συνέβη στη Φλόριντα το 1990, όπου δίτες παγιδεύτηκαν σε μια υποβρύχια σπηλιά, όπως παρουσιάζεται και στο βίντεο της αναπαράστασης, το οποίο το έχουν δώσει δημόσια στο YouTube. Ήταν μια recreational κατάδυση που πήρε μια επικίνδυνη τροπή όταν κάποιοι δίτες μπήκαν σε μια υποβρύχια σπηλιά χωρίς την κατάλληλη εκπαίδευση. Μπήκανε σε ένα περιβάλλον overhead. Τι σημαίνει overhead περιβάλλον? Για όσους δεν είναι δίτες ή δεν έχουν επαφή με σπηλιές, σε μια σπηλιά δεν υπάρχει το αν κάτι πάει στραβά, ανεβαίνω. Όχι. Έχεις οροφή. Έχεις περιορισμό. Μπορεί να μηδενίσει η ορατότητα, μπορεί να χαθεί ο προσανατολισμός. Ο πρώτος κρίκος είναι σχεδόν πάντα ψυχολογικός. Γιατί? Πλησιάζει ο δίτης στην είσοδο. Σκέφτεται. Πάμε λίγο πιο μέσα να δούμε. Λίγο. Αυτό το λίγο σε overhead περιβάλλον, όπως είπα πριν, είναι παγίδα. Γιατί κάθε μέτρο που μπαίνεις είναι μέτρο που πρέπει να γυρίσεις πίσω. Και αν κάτι πάει στραβά, ο χρόνος διπλασιάζεται. Ένας καλός open water δίτης ή ακόμα και εκπαιδευτής δεν είναι αυτόματα έτοιμος για σπηλιά. Η σπηλιά θέλει άλλες δεξιότητες, πλοήγηση σε γραμμή, διαχείριση μηδενικής ορατότητας, επικοινωνία ομάδας και κυρίως έλεγχο στρες. Και το στρες στη σπηλιά δεν είναι θεωρία, είναι φυσιολογία. Σε overhead περιβάλλον ο εξοπλισμός δεν είναι για την άνεση, είναι για επιβίωση. Εφεδρικό φως, σωστός τρόπος πλοήγησης, εφεδρίες που δεν σε αφήνουν τυφλό ή χωρίς επιλογές. Στο βίντεο η κρίσιμη πίεση είναι ο αέρας που τελειώνει και εδώ είναι το πιο πρακτικό μάθημα σε σπηλιά. Ο αέρας δεν είναι όσο έχω, είναι σχέδιο επιστροφής, συν σχέδιο απροόπτου. Πάμε να δούμε λίγο το βίντεο και θα τα πούμε τα υπόλοιπα στη συνέχεια.
For most of us, help is only a phone call away. What can you do if you get into trouble beyond the reach of help? I'm William Shatner. Tonight, true stories of dark despair and unexpected heroes on Rescue 911. We begin on May 19th, 1990, at a campground just outside Gainesville, Florida, as an afternoon's adventure turned to tragedy.
There were 4 other divers plus myself. We were all certified divers going out to have a good time.
Instructor Jackie Galvin, along with 4 friends and former students, had driven to a remote campground to go scuba diving in a freshwater spring.
Spring hopping is when you go out and you're just going to see
Τι
what
βλέπουμε εδώ?
the
Βλέπουμε
basic
μια
springs
ομάδα
around here
δυτών
have for the
αναψυχής να
divers.
πηγαίνει μια
We were looking
ωραία
for just a general
βόλτα για
shallow spring
κατάδυση
fairly well
αναψυχής. Ο
open.
εξοπλισμός
We
που
wanted to see a
φοράνε
bubbling
είναι
spring.
αναψυχής. Δεν είναι σπηλαιοκατάδυσης. Το βλέπουμε καθαρά. Έτσι.
Each diver has their own reason to be there. Mine is just to get away from it all.
Dan Enfinger had made 53 dives in the 5 months since he'd been certified.
Each place that I go to, I'm looking for something new. I really didn't know what to expect. I just wanted to see what was there.
The spring was fed by a system of caves and tunnels which lay more than 40 feet below the surface.
Εδώ λοιπόν, σε αυτό το σημείο, ακριβώς στο οποίο βλέπουμε, ξεκινάει το λάθος για εμένα. Δεν είχε καμία δουλειά ο συνοδός εκπαιδευτής των ανθρώπων αυτών να τους πάει στην είσοδο του σπηλαίου. Από το σημείο αυτό και πέρα η κατάδυση θεωρείται cover. Αρχίζεις και μπαίνεις μέσα σε ένα σπήλαιο. Ακόμα και το ότι βρίσκεσαι στην είσοδο είναι σαν να έχεις μπει μέσα σε ένα σπήλαιο. Λάθος μεγάλο που τους πήγε στην είσοδο του σπηλαίου. Τους βάζει λοιπόν σε ένα στενό πηγάδι που θα δείτε, να μπουν όλα αυτά τα 4 άτομα μέσα εκεί, να αρχίσουν να χτυπιούνται μεταξύ τους, που και εκεί μπορεί να συμβεί κάτι. Δεν είναι οι δίτες αυτοί εκπαιδευμένοι για να μπουν εκεί, σε αυτό το στενό σημείο. Και τους πάει όλους εκεί για να δουν την είσοδο. Και από εκεί, κατά εμένα, ξεκινάει και το λάθος. Και το λάθος ποιο είναι? Το λίγο πιο μέσα. Πάμε, δεν τρέχει τίποτα, αφού μπήκαμε μέχρι εδώ, πάμε και λίγο πιο μέσα. Δεν είναι και τίποτα, να δούμε και λίγο πιο μέσα. Από εδώ λοιπόν για εμένα ξεκινάει το λάθος. Πάμε να δούμε τη συνέχεια.
Straight down, because it's so shallow all the way around, it was a little tight, but not that. At the bottom of the crevice, there's a line of rock on one side, and there's a cavern opening on the other side.
One of the things that you're always told when you're an open water diver is never to penetrate caves.
None of the 5 divers had the specialized training or equipment needed for cave diving.
I could see that it went back a little ways, and I wanted to just look inside the entrance and just see what was there.
I noticed that Dan was looking at the cave entrance, and I just shook my head no. He gave me the okay sign, and everybody else looked like they were doing fine. I pointed to my gauge and...
Λοιπόν, τι βλέπουμε εδώ? Σε αυτό το σημείο βλέπουμε το εξής. Την εκπαιδεύτρια να κάνει το σήμα thumbs up, που σημαίνει ότι η κατάδυση τελείωσε, πάμε απάνω. Είναι αδιαπραγμάτευτο, δεν το συζητάμε και ακολουθούμε αυτή την εντολή. Όταν βλέπουμε αυτό το σήμα στο open water, η κατάδυση τελείωσε. Δεν ρωτάμε γιατί τελείωσε. Απλά τελείωσε. Όποιος το κάνει. Και γέρουμε όλοι προς τα πάνω. Εδώ τι γίνεται? Η εκπαιδεύτρια κάνει το σήμα, λέει στους ανθρώπους συνοδούς, όχι, μην μπείτε στη σπηλιά, φεύγουμε. Και τι κάνει? Κάνει το τραγικό λάθος η εκπαιδεύτρια και φεύγει πρώτη. Φεύγει πρώτη. Δεν περίμενε να δει να φύγουν πρώτα οι άνθρωποι που συνοδεύει και τελευταία να φύγει αυτή. Άρα φεύγει πρώτη. Κάνει σήμα και φεύγει. Και οι άλλοι μένουν κάτω. Και σου λέει, ωραία είναι εδώ. Κοίτα και τη σπηλιά λίγο. Έχουν και φακούς. Έχουν και φακούς στα χέρια. Μα πώς πήγαν να κάνουν μια κατάδυση από ημέρα? Γιατί να έχουν φακούς? Με φακούς στην είσοδο του σπηλαίου είναι σαν να λες τον άλλο, έλα μπες. Σου δώσα και φακό, σε πήγα και στην είσοδο του σπηλαίου, μπες. Οπότε λοιπόν, πολύ ωραίο. Να πάμε και λίγο πιο μέσα να δούμε. Πάμε και λίγο πιο μέσα. Και εκεί ξεκινάει. Το λάθος έχει γίνει από πριν που σας είπα. Και από εδώ τώρα είναι το δεύτερο λάθος. Το ένα λάθος φέρνει το άλλο. Οπότε έχουμε μία αλυσίδα από λάθη. Όπου να δούμε πού θα καταλήξουν. Πάμε να δούμε τη συνέχεια. Έχει ενδιαφέρον.
And up. Just before I broke the surface, I turned around to look, and nobody else followed me. I knew they were going into the cave, and there was nothing I could do about it.
2 divers had just moved up a little bit and looked at me, and at that point is when I seen one go in. It seemed like that's no big deal, you know, it's really clear in there, and that's when I went in. Once I entered the cave, I knew I was going to catch hell from Jackie when we came back out. But knowing that you went one direction, all you got to do is turn around and go back. There was really no alarm at that point. Everybody seemed to be having a good time.
Αλυσίδα λαθών. Δεν ξέρουν να κινηθούν μέσα στο σπήλαιο, σηκώνουν ίζημα. Δεν έχουν εκπαιδευτεί να κινούνται στο σπήλαιο. Δεν ακολουθούν μύτο. Το ένα λάθος πίσω από το άλλο. Γιατί όταν θα γυρίσουν πίσω θα έχουν μηδενική ορατότητα. Δεν θα βλέπουν ένα στον άλλο. Ας δούμε τη συνέχεια.
You find yourself going deeper and deeper in and seeing what's next. Chris was leading, showing around different crevices and things. I stopped to look at my gauge and looked up, and there were no divers. Our flippers had stirred up everything that was behind us. A cloud came over all of me. I couldn't find the cave walls. There's light up in the ceiling, and it got brighter and clearer. I just thought maybe I was heading for heaven when I realized I just come out of the cave, and out of sheer luck, I'm alive. When I hit the surface, I thought I was the last one coming out.
Dan, you're the first one.
When she said that everybody was still down, I was so scared for them, knowing what was there.
I considered going back down into the spring. However, I had a very low-filled tank. I didn't have a light. I didn't have a line. And that's all standard cave diving equipment.
It's just too filthy down there. I can't even see the entrance.
At the nearby campground, Bob Weeks was at a Continental Water Company picnic with his family.
I noticed there were 2 divers there. They looked concerned.
He asked me if I was cave certified, and I said no. He asked me if the others were cave certified, and I said no. And he said, I'll be right back.
A friend of mine, Woody Jasper, was at the picnic already, and he's one of the best cave divers in the nation.
Woody, who has made more than 570 cave dives, just happened to work for the company that was having the picnic there that day.
I immediately left and went down to the water feeling anger that this senseless tragedy was going to unfold itself again. It's deceptively easy to swim into the cave, and they simply don't appreciate the risk they're putting themselves in when they cross that barrier of darkness.
You got 3 divers over there?
Yes, I do. They're right down here in the water.
My presumptions were very much that they were in desperate trouble. I carry all my gear with me, but in cave diving, the chances of actually bringing off a rescue are almost non-existent. The reason is because there's just not any time.
The 3 trapped divers had only enough air to last an hour at most, and under stress, air is used up much more rapidly.
As long as we had bubbles, we knew there were divers alive. I'm going, please hurry, please hurry, please hurry.
The time had been closing on an hour since they had gone down, and even though the cave in relative terms is fairly shallow, that's still an awfully long time for open water divers to be down on a single tank.
I turned to Dan, and we just kind of looked at each other. The bubbles had stopped.
Some people said, well, what's the use? They've been down too long. But we had a chance. And Woody knew he had that chance. That's why he went down.
Over the past 11 years, Woody had made 4 previous cave recoveries. but it never brought a diver out of the cave alive. When we continue,
I had a strong feeling that if the mask and snorkel were there on the bottom, at least a body, if not bodies, were going to be directly overhead on the ceiling.
cave diving expert Woody Jasper was the only hope left for the 3 divers still trapped in the underwater caves.
The spring mouth was significantly clearer than it had been just a few minutes before. That's indicative that there's nobody stirring around. And it looked greatly like it was going to be a regular body recovery.
Woody had mapped part of this same cave system 10 years before and knew there was a safety line he could follow to get out.
About 40 feet in from the entrance of the cave system, there's a fork where a tunnel goes to the left and another straight ahead. There was some silt still lingering, and it was coming from the left tunnel. So that was clear the direction they had gone. Most people who drown in underwater caves have become hopelessly lost. It's usually due to a sudden total loss of visibility. It's typical for divers at the last moments they have to start trying to throw their gear off. And when I saw that stuff, I took a moment to take a nice deep breath, because I had a strong feeling that if the mask and snorkel were there on the bottom, that at least a body, if not bodies, were going to be directly overhead on the ceiling. There was a glimmer of a little small light and 4 legs with fins sticking down from the crevice in the top. I could see their bodies quite clearly except for their heads, and their heads were up into an air pocket that had been trapped from their own exhaust bubbles up there. I took my second regulator and started hitting the purge button to try to let them know that I was there. After 30 seconds or so of getting no response, I took the only diver I could reach, and I began to remove him as rapidly as possible.
It was a good 5 minutes before I seen bubbles coming out of the cave entrance. He come popping up out of the water with a body.
And it was Alan. People are screaming, he's not breathing, he doesn't have a heartbeat.
How can I go back?
We all pulled him out of the water, got him on the bank. He was blue and his eyes were rolled back in his head and they were cloudy.
I knew that he was dead.
We got water out of his lungs and we began CPR.
All right, 5 to 1.
Okay.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
And Kathy began compressions and I was doing the breathing. We had a chance and we had to take that chance and run with it.
The people at the picnic, trained in CPR by their company, took turns working on the young man.
Breathe, Bobby, breathe.
They were Alan's only hope, but I really didn't think he was going to make it. That was very upsetting because I knew if he's that bad, the rest are that bad. And we just waited for the next body to be brought up.
I was re-entering the cave to go do the second body extraction. I very much presumed that everyone had perished. As I swim into the dome room and start coming up into the crevice, I'm shining my light up. And this dead guy starts reaching around for me. That was certainly the high point of the day to me, to realize this guy's still alive. I kept giving him a lot of reassurance, squeezing his hand, and he'd squeeze my hand back. We were both real glad that the other one was there. All the air that I had expelled into that area when I was there the first time had revived him while I was gone.
As we were breathing for Alan, we knew we were doing some good because his eyes were starting to clear up.
They continued to perform CPR, led by Ed Templeton.
I was compressing down on his chest. Then one of them says, "I've got a pulse." His heart hit the bottom of my hand and just pushed my hand up. It just came on that hard. We moved him up further up the bank because we knew what he would be coming out with someone else for too long. I guess he still had a good bit of water in his lungs, but he was fighting. He was starting to fight back.
When he took the first breath, Kathy asked me, she said, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "Yes, I hear it, and it's great." That's when somebody yelled that Woody was on his way up with another person. It was Chris. He was breathing on his own. He was alive. I couldn't believe that after being underwater anywhere from 85 to 95 minutes. It's just impossible. And he actually left the water on his own. He walked out. It was incredible.
But Ken Ives was still missing, somewhere in the caves.
As Woody went back down to get Ken, I'm thinking, all right, if they found air, maybe he found air.
Everything was turning to our favor. The CPR people were there. The rescue cave diver was there. Chris came up alive. Alan's alive. Ken has to be alive. That's what I was thinking. And Woody brought him up, and everybody's yelling, "Here he comes with the last one."
You could almost look at Ken and tell there was no hope, but we had to try. People were moving and moving fast. They started working on him, and I said, maybe, just maybe. We worked hard, we tried, real hard. I just stood there and stared and just couldn't believe what I was seeing. He was dead. And there's just no way of getting him back.
Paramedics from 3 counties responded. But despite their best efforts, they could not revive the 25-year-old man. Alan was still in critical condition.
I believe everybody who was involved has some guilt feelings. I will always wonder if I could have used the 400 pounds in my tank and found them, or would I be just one more person down there?
I knew for a fact that it was something I shouldn't have done. Cave diving is for only the experienced, because I'll tell you, there's nothing in there that's worth a person's life.
I get real angry because there really isn't any reason for this to happen. Training is available, it's economical. To simply swim in without proper equipment and training is unconscionable. It is unnecessary, and it's a terrible waste.
25-year-old Alan Welch was airlifted to a hospital. Both lungs were partially collapsed, and doctors feared he had suffered brain damage. He was placed in a hyperbaric chamber. In the 2 months since the accident, Alan has made a complete recovery, but he never wants to dive again. His mother, Lois, also cannot forget what happened.
The hardest part was watching him when he was in pain and it hurt him to breathe. Every time I look at him, I think how close we came to losing him.
The timing was perfect. The people were there in the park having their picnic, and it's amazing, all the different things that fell into place.
They jumped right in and did what they had to do and knew what they had to do. They brought me my son back, and I can't thank them enough.
Well, I would never think about giving up diving. Never. I just really won't ever go into a cave again.
The air pocket helped Chris Gallup and Alan survive, but it was the heroism of strangers that saved their lives.
I really do feel grateful for Woody and all of his buddies that helped, because if they hadn't been there, none of us would have made it out. None of us.
Πάμε να το κλείσουμε ψύχραμα με το πραγματικό μάθημα. Εδώ δεν είδαμε ένα μεγάλο λάθος. Είδαμε μια αλυσίδα μικρών λαθών να συμβαίνει το ένα μετά το άλλο. Και αυτό είναι που κάνει τέτοια περιστατικά τόσο επικίνδυνα αλλά και τόσο χρήσιμα σαν μάθημα και σαν παράδειγμα προς αποφυγή. Ο πρώτος κρίκος των λαθών που έσπασε, που ξεκίνησε, είναι ότι μια κατάδυση αναψυχής με εξοπλισμό αναψυχής καταλήγει να κουμπάει σε ένα overhead περιβάλλον και σε σπηλιά. Ο recreational εξοπλισμός δεν σου δίνει τα περιθώρια που χρειάζεσαι, δεν έχεις τα αποθέματα σε αέρα, σε φώτα, σε διαδικασίες. Εκεί κάθε μικρό πρόβλημα γίνεται μεγάλο και πολλαπλασιάζεται. Το δεύτερο λάθος μεγάλο είναι η στιγμή όπου υπήρχε ένα ξεκάθαρο όριο από τη συνοδό. Είδαμε τη συνοδό να κάνει σήμα όχι, να μην μπουν. Αυτό είναι το σημείο όπου η αλυσίδα μπορούσε να σπάσει αμέσως, των λαθών δηλαδή, με ένα απλό όχι. Όταν όμως οι λιγότεροι έμπειροι αγνοούν το σήμα και μπαίνουν, ουσιαστικά επιλέγουν να συνεχίσουν χωρίς πλάνο, χωρίς πειθαρχία, χωρίς κοινή απόφαση ομάδας. Τρίτο λάθος, τρίτη κατά σειρά λάθος, είναι ότι εδώ δεν υπάρχει συνοχή της ομάδας. Σε τέτοιες καταστάσεις ο στόχος δεν είναι να φύγει ο καθένας μόνος του. Ο στόχος είναι να κρατηθεί η ομάδα μαζί. Βουτήξανε ως ομάδα. Δεν κρατηθήκανε μαζί. Και να επιβληθεί μια ασφαλής έξοδο. Σε επίπεδο mentoring, ο κανόνας είναι απλός. Οι λιγότεροι έμπειροι βγαίνουν πρώτοι. Οι leaders και οι συνοδοί βγαίνουν τελευταίοι. Γιατί? Για να μην μείνει κανείς πίσω. Είναι ξεκάθαρο λοιπόν ότι η ασφάλεια στη σπηλιά δεν είναι θέμα θάρρους, δεν είναι θέμα δύναμης, να το πούμε έτσι. Είναι θέμα εκπαίδευσης, είναι θέμα ότι πρέπει να έχεις πλάνο, είναι θέμα εξοπλισμού και θέμα πειθαρχίας. Και το πιο σημαντικό είναι ότι πλέον το τελευταίος κρίκος στα μικρά αυτά λάθη είναι όταν πλέον φτάνει και τελειώνει ο αέρας μας μέσα στη σπηλιά. Έτσι. Και συμβαίνουν αυτά που συμβαίνουν. Χρυσός κανόνας λοιπόν. Σε περιβάλλον overhead ή σπηλιά, οτιδήποτε δηλαδή δεν είναι σαν ανοιχτή θάλασσα που έχεις εκπαιδευτεί, δεν αυτοσχεδιάζεις, δεν μπαίνεις. Έτσι, μπαίνεις μόνο με εκπαίδευση, με πλάνο και εφεδρείες ή δεν μπαίνεις καθόλου. Αυτά είχα να πω. Αν σας άρεσε αυτό το βίντεο, κάντε subscribe. Εδώ θα μιλάμε μόνο για κατάδυση, με στόχο να γινόμαστε πιο ασφαλείς κάθε φορά. Γράψτε μου στα σχόλια, εσύ τι πιστεύεις και σε ποιο σημείο πιστεύεις ότι ξεκίνησε το λάθος, η αλυσίδα των λαθών στο συγκεκριμένο περιστατικό. Αυτά. Ευχαριστώ πολύ. Καλό βράδυ σε όλους.